Welcome to the Book of Wretch, where stories of the macabre and supernatural are told. We ask all of the lost, the damned, and everything in between to join us for yet another spine-chilling tale. With that said, let's begin. Welcome to the Wretched Room, a brand new series where we speak of the unspoken, the unholy, and of course, the wretched ones that live upon us. Today's episode is a special one. This is for all my haunt actors out there that love to scare the absolute shit out of every soul that goes through our haunts. Shout out to Bloodshed Farms, the best scare actors in the business. However, this tale is about a scare actor that not only petrified guests, but absolutely horrified the very scare actors he worked with. His name is Samson Cordova. Before we get into what he's become, let's talk about who he was. Samson was born in 1976 in the city of Show Low in Navajo County, Arizona. He was the oldest of two other siblings. He lived with his mom, dad, and a younger brother and sister who were twins. His mom worked an honest job as a housemaid, and his dad worked in the landscaping business. They weren't wealthy, but they did live a happy life. They owned a 3-bedroom home. They had food on the table every day, and the kids went to a good public school. Samson grew up a pretty normal kid, and never really shown any glaring problems throughout his childhood. Well, until high school started, that is. Let's fast forward to 1990. Samson is 14 years old, just starting high school as a freshman, and his little brother and sister, who were just 10, started 5th grade. Samson was a quiet kid. He was very large for his age and was only 5'4" tall. He wouldn't get bullied in middle school, but that all changed once he started high school. The events of his first day of high school was probably what caused his mental downfall into what he has become. Every girl that walked past him gave him nasty looks. And while some whispered snarky comments about him, a lot of the popular girls made embarrassing remarks about him out loud. But that was only the beginning. During his lunch period, the seniors of the football team decided they wanted in on the fun too. They came up to Samson and pretended to become friends with him. They told him to go to the boys' locker room after school, so they could initiate him into the football team, since he had the size for it. So once the school day ended, he went to the boys' locker room where everyone was waiting. To his surprise, 2 cheerleaders were also there. He asked them why they were there, and they replied by saying, "Because we want to cheer you on your big day." He let out a smile, but still felt concerned. One of the guys from the football team then sat Samson down on an armchair and blindfolded him. Suddenly, 4 other guys duct taped his arms and legs to the chair, and Samson started freaking out and screaming, so they duct taped his mouth too. All Samson heard was laughing, and one guy said, "Get the bars. I have cases of them." At first, he didn't know what they meant, until he heard one of the girls say, "Ooh, this smells good." It clicked to him. They were about to beat him with bars of soap and pillowcases. And that they did. For 10 minutes straight, they beat him senseless. Blow after blow to his head, his face, his ears, his ribs, and his neck. He then went limp, and they thought for a second that they killed him. They took off his blindfold and the duct tape off his mouth and slapped his face a bit to try to wake him up. He woke up soon after. He wound up just being knocked unconscious. After everyone let out a sigh of relief, one of the guys named Leo grabbed Samson by his hair and told him to not tell a single soul about what happened today, and to just say that some adults beat him up on his way back home. And if Samson were to tell, Leo said he would kill his whole family. It was at this point something snapped in Samson's brain. No one knew if it was from the beating he got to the head from the soap that may knocked a few screws loose, the fact that his family was threatened, or just being traumatized by the events that took place. But Samson changed after that day. They cut him loose from the duct tape, and the cheerleaders said, "Have a good day, Sam," laughing and giggling. But Samson just walked out of the locker room, straight-faced, looking like a completely different person. The football team and the cheerleaders felt a pit in their stomach seeing Samson leave like that, like something bad would happen. But that's just what a guilty conscience feels like. When Samson got home and opened the front door, his mom was vacuuming and saw him standing at the door, dripping blood from his head, with the most blank expression on his face. At first, she didn't recognize him, with his face covered in blood, until she saw his clothes and started to burst into tears, asking him what happened. But he didn't say anything, just stood there, expressionless. He was taken to the hospital and looked at that evening, and his face, neck, head, and chest were bruised badly. The doctor believed he was concussed immensely and confirmed that he lost all hearing in his left ear, as well as some rib contusion. The police tried to question him, but he wouldn't say anything. His mom and dad begged Samson to say anything about his abusers, but still nothing. Unfortunately, the police never looked deeper into the situation and just assumed that he was beat up and robbed by random assailants. About a week later, Samson finally said a word to his mom. It was Friday night, and all he said was, "I'm going out," and left. His mom stood there in shock after suddenly hearing her son speak after so long, but also because he just left afterwards and said nothing more. You could say she had a moment of relief to hear him speak again, but also a moment of concern, because he never left the house at night before, nor did he ever mention any friends. She's been worried about his well-being all week, because he's been coming home from school way later than usual, with black bags of things that she knew nothing about. So all she had on her mind was, what is he up to? Quick spoiler alert, it was nothing good. He found out the whole football team were having a house party at Leo's house, and all the cheerleaders were going to be there. When Samson left the house, he left with a backpack full of things that a 14-year-old probably shouldn't have. He had multiple bottles of GHB, a pair of gloves, a roll of duct tape, and a brand new butcher knife. For you who don't know what GHB is, it's a liquid sedative that causes people to lose consciousness and fall into a deep sleep for hours. So obviously, Samson wasn't invited to this party, but he found a way in through the back door and wore a black hoodie with sunglasses to not be noticed. The party was packed with every member of the football and cheerleading teams, as well as random seniors, sophomores, juniors, and freshmen. In the kitchen, there were multiple drink bowls of alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks that everyone would drink out of. So I'm sure you can see where this is going. When Samson could, he would pour a bottle of GHB in every drink bowl and mix it with more sugar to tone down the taste of the GHB. He would do this all night until everyone started to fall asleep wherever they stood. Most people were too drunk to even notice that people were passing out all around them. Hours later, he had everyone in the party asleep, all over the house. He moved all the furniture in the living room to the walls, opening the floor up as much as possible, and dragged the entire football and cheerleading team into the living room. He laid down the football team shoulder to shoulder, except for Leo. He tied Leo's arms and legs to a chair with duct tape, as well as putting duct tape on his mouth, and put him in the backyard to deal with last. He then got his butcher knife and cut off the entire head of every person of the football team. When he was done with that, he sat every cheerleader on the couches and sat some down on the floor under the couch and sliced their throats open, as well as slicing a frown on their face from the corner of their lips, and took a group picture with the head cheerleader's phone and posted it on every social media she owned, being seen by hundreds and shared by thousands. But he wasn't done yet. He then went into the bathroom and grabbed a big bottle of rubbing alcohol, as well as a box of matches, and went outside to deal with Leo. He took Leo's shirt off and carved the word bully in his chest, nice and big. He then poured the alcohol all over Leo and lit a match and lit him on fire, instantly waking him up from his deep sleep, as he then had to not only feel the immense pain of being burned alive, but the last face he'll see before he dies is the grin of Samson. He then left and made his way back home as if nothing happened. Samson returned home at 1 a.m., and when he opened the front door, his mom and dad were sitting there waiting for him. His dad was very upset at him for coming home so late, but his mom was worried more than anything. His dad asked what he was doing and why he was wearing all black with sunglasses on at night and what was in the backpack, but Samson didn't say anything. He just shrugged and went to his room. His parents didn't push to continue questioning him though, because they still didn't know if Samson was mentally okay enough to take questioning like that. The next morning was the worst day in Arizona history. 22 boys and 12 girls were reported dead in an extremely gruesome way, as well as dozens of other kids that were drugged. This story has went not only nationwide, but worldwide. The chief of police said that there are no leads to who could have done this, but they do believe that this had to be done by a big group of malicious people, because for one, or even 2 or 3 people to do this would be impossible. This killing has sent a huge wave in the true crime industry and left millions confused as to how a mass murder of this capacity could have no leads, and how and why an event like this would even happen. Samson's parents saw this on the news, and they immediately thought about Samson being out so late last night. They didn't want to believe it was him, or that he was involved in any way, but they had to make sure. Every school in the area was closed down for a week because of the mass murders. So while Samson was home and in the shower, his parents went into his room and tried to look around for anything. They looked under his bed and found the backpack he wore last night and opened it and saw the bloody butcher knife. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should call the cops on their own son, believe that it wasn't him and someone put it there without Samson knowing, or just simply cry. They then heard the bathroom light being turned off, so they quickly put the bag back under the bed, and as soon as they turned around, Samson was standing there, and he said, "What are you doing in my room?" He said it in such a monotone voice that it scared the hell out of his parents. They said they were just looking for him to make sure he was okay, to say that they loved him, and that they're just glad that he wasn't at that party. They left his room immediately and went downstairs to contemplate what to do. They both decided that they just didn't see anything. Samson closed his door and looked under his bed and saw that the bag was open, when he knew for a fact that the bag was closed. This put Samson in a furious state. He can't have anyone know what he's done, no matter who it was. He killed his parents, his brother, and his sister that very night in their sleep, without any hesitation. He packed their bodies in the car and drove states away and buried them as deep as he could to make them untraceable as possible. His new life then begun that day, a life of pure horror and homicide. 4 years go by of doing odd jobs for quick cash and living in and out of his car. The year is 1994, October 11th, and Samson sets his eyes on a brand new haunt in Louisiana called Devil's Dozen. It's been the #1 haunt in Louisiana for 10 years in a row and has been in the top 5 haunts in the world for the past 3 years, simply because of its massive improvements. Devil's Dozen consists of 12 different themes. Each theme consists of 8 rooms each, with a total of 96 rooms to get through, making it the biggest haunt in the world. But little does this haunt know what bigger terrors await this season. If you thought what Samson has done in Arizona was beyond horrible, just you wait until you see the horrors that unfold in Louisiana in part 2. If you're interested in hearing the rest of the story of Samson Cordova, leave a like and comment so I know you're interested. So until next time, I hope you join us when we open the Book of Wretch yet again. But remember, be careful when you enter the mind of a wretched. You may just leave a wretch. Good night and pleasant nightmares.